Here with legendary wide receiver Herman Moore. We could talk wide receivers, and this is going to be a fun one. I'm already laughing before we actually recorded because some funny stuff happened on the side. But how you doing, Herm?
Hey, you know what? I'm living la vida loca. I'm blessed, man. I'm just enjoying life, enjoying the fact that I'm still coming down off of cloud nine from this past season that started out that was a little bit disastrous, but then it came back to be a fairy tale. So I'm good, man. I'm real good. Plus, I'm through all the major holidays like Christmas and all that. We got Black History Month, which is awesome. I get to teach my kids not just one time out of the year, but just again, just letting them understand the celebration of heritage and stuff like that. So, man, I'm just in a good place.
Absolutely. That's awesome, man. That's a great place. Are you considering getting a perm or because we were talking outside, maybe get Rory a perm?
Hey, you know what? I was watching the Pro Bowl and I heard them just cracking on Rory saying, look, man, the Lions mascot looked like he needs a perm. Said he looked like Kent Williams. Come on. They just can't do that. I mean, and I
He
have to,
does.
we all have to admit, it was hilarious. That hilarious. I burst out laughing and, kudos to Amon-Ra St. Brown, man, just showing the hands, showing that he got the mitts that go with with everything else he did this year. So going out there, hey man, it was a blessing to see him and the other guys get out to the Pro Bowl because I felt like they really deserved it. And it's a good week, man. It's a good place to be if you're a Detroit Lion fan. Also, if you're a Detroit Lion alum, and that's why we're here chopping it up.
Absolutely, man. It is definitely a good time for sure. And talking about wide receivers is a really good time because I love wide receivers. You're one of the best of all time. Let's talk about Jameson Williams. Now, we know what he can bring to the team. What is your expectations? Kind of almost a red shirt last year, right? It was just a couple games he was in there. What do you expect for him for year two under this regime, and what can he do with this offense?
Where year two, I look for him to come out really hungry and healthy. If you look at the way he was played, it was hard to get a real assessment of who he was and what type of player and how he really fits into the system because I think they were just trying to get him some catches. They were just trying to get him involved with the play calling and also the flow of the game so he can catch up and have that element going into his second season because otherwise, I mean, you look at some of the things that he did. Did he get behind the defensive secondary? Did he get behind the safety like we knew his speed would allow him to do? Absolutely. But outside of that, seeing him take small catches and do something with that, or being really elusive on a consistent basis and playing, down, multiple downs and series and things of that nature, we didn't get a chance to really see that. But I do look for him to be implemented into the system next year, and that's going to be something to watch to just really to see where do they play him, how do they play him, and then what's really going to be his role. Because when I'm looking at this receiving unit, it looks like they all have very specific roles that they play in terms of the success of that unit.
That's 100%. DJ Chark was just talking about that, how they have specific roles. And unlike other offenses, they just utilize those roles and what they're really good at. I think that's a great observation. I'm going to have you travel back in time to when you're a rookie. What is the difficulties for someone like a Jameson Williams who was injured? He didn't participate in training camp, at least physically. But to try to translate everything that you're learning as a rookie and then put it on the field, how long does it take for that mental game kind of work in? Oh, now I'm reacting to this play instead of thinking about it.
I think the instincts of the game. I think also sharpening your tools and understanding it. A lot of people talk about the speed of the game. I think that from college to pro now, because of the way they train and the way they prepare, is a little different than when I came out. So I think they're a little bit more NFL ready when they get there, and it's just a matter of the mental part of it. It's the physical part and making sure your body can now keep up with the fact that you have just the freak of nature. You got the best of the best that are playing every week. You may not know their names, but they are the best at their position. That's why they're starting and playing in the NFL. With Jameson Williams, what I look at is, how will he develop that rapport? Receiver and quarterback and having that connection is vitally important. There's a trust factor that has to happen. He's going to need that from Jared Goff. Jared Goff's going to need to know when to trust to give him time to get open and hold the pass a little bit longer because he has the confidence that he's going to beat his coverage. These are things that you can't rep unless two players are playing together and they're repping together. You look at Amon-Ra St. Brown and just his acceleration from year one to year two. And then you look at how those other players who came along and had an opportunity to play in the offensive unit, how they accelerated as well. So he's going to need to play a little bit longer. I think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to get defined for him as he goes further, but a lot of that's going to come through just having the reps all together. And then really, how will he handle also a receiving unit that now seems to be getting crowded? And then you also have a running game that you feel like you can depend on, that you want to go to soften up defenses. So therefore, you have to be patient in the receiving unit. So that there's a few things that are going to be at play. So I'm going to look at his mental capacity, and I'm going to look at how he handles if he's not going to be the superstar that everyone thought that he was going to have to be, when right now he can take his time and he really doesn't have to be that guy right now.
I think what you said there is so important. The relationship between quarterback and wide receiver being on the same page where it's more instinctual. They know what each other is going to do. Amon-Ra St. Brown was just at an interview with DJ Chark, and he said, I knew exactly what Jared Goff was going to do before the play was even called. They just looked at each other. We knew it right there. And that rapport has got to take place by the reps and being around each other. And when Jameson Williams, obviously not training camp, he kind of got pushed in there halfway through the season, late end. It's not going to be there. And if you look at DJ Chark last year, the first half, the rapport with Goff wasn't there. The second half, bam, those guys were tight. The big plays were happening. And so I think Jameson Williams will take a significant jump next year. And probably halfway through the season next year, him and Jared Goff will really get on the same page and get those breakaway plays that you expect when you trade up for a wide receiver, from 32 all the way to 12. And so I know a lot of fans are a little bit worried about Jameson Williams. I'm not. I think that's so key, what you're saying. That relationship and rapport must occur. And I think it will. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
It's going to take a little bit of time. The patience is going to pay off. When I look at my first year, and I look at how the team had to really wait for me. They had to really say, you know what, we know that this is the right guy. It wasn't until my 12th game of the season that I really got in and had some playing time against Chicago on the road. But even then, I still didn't play that much in the regular season. I finished with 11 catches and 135 yards my first season. And that was it. And I played some spot duty here and there in games, but it was pretty much when the game was out of reach and I was going in more of a blocker and things of that nature, just to get my feet wet and those things. But it wasn't until the playoffs that I really accelerated, because I became that full starter. So Jameson Williams is going to have to look at, when he's put into that situation, you don't get a chance to light it up but so many times. And luckily for me, I did it at the biggest stage, and that was in the playoffs, and it carried me on for the next 7 years. For him, he's just got a few things to work through.
DJ Chark, Jared Goff, like we just said, obviously everyone see the connection at halfway through the season. They were on target. And DJ Chark was talking about how when he was in Jacksonville, he had so many different quarterbacks. You can never get on the same page. Come here, it's a more stable situation. The craziest thing is Detroit's stable, but that's what he was talking about, the stable here. If you are GM, do you think that relationship with Chark and Goff should continue at the right price, right? You can't under or overpay. You have to be fiscally responsible, just like any business. But if you have the opportunity to bring him back, do you think year two with Jared Goff, that those two could start really good from game one on, as we saw from halfway through the season last year?
I think there's a lot of that's going to come back to Jared Goff and how much he wants to really go to bat for DJ Chark and say, okay, I want this person back. Because when there are free agents out in the market, every team's going to be tempted. If it's not your number one or your number two guy, everyone else is expendable or shoppable, or you're willing to swap out if you feel that there's a better fit. And maybe there's more versatility that perhaps the other player doesn't give you based on your scheme. So I'd be interested in seeing, how they go about that. I think the rapport is there. I think he was coming along strong. And I don't think it was one of those things you have to worry too much about, that there's going to be some type of setback that's going to occur. If you look at the history of how he got here and coming off of an injury from Jacksonville, I think some people may look at that and say, well, that's 1 year going through and everything was okay. He was down for a little bit, I think even last year for a game or so. But for the most part, he has come through, and I think he's shown the ability of why they picked him up. So I think at the right price, you bring him back. I think the way this unit, and speaking to these players and speaking to the receivers, this unit wants to stay together. I don't think they're looking for any outside help. They're not looking for other people to come in and save them as they were a year ago, 2 years ago. This is a unit that's looking to improve on last year and go out and show that they have all the tools to be successful, win the NFC North, and potentially get into the playoffs and have an opportunity for doing some special things.
Lastly, with Jared Goff and the wide receivers, something that we've noticed last year with him and the year he traded is when he had the off season, he had little camps at his house. He brought his wide receivers in, and they trained, not in training camp or mini camp, but with him. He wanted to get a connection early. This is something that he does. How do you take, is that something that's really going to help out the receivers that much? Is it not that significant? And is that something that you experienced in your time with the Detroit Lions?
Well, I can definitely tell you. I didn't. We went down. We did spring practice. Wayne would take us down to Clearwater, Florida. We go to Tampa Bay. We practice in their stadium for about an hour and a half in the morning, and we had the rest of the day. And we'd stay there for however long. I can't even remember how long we were there. So it was like a mini vacation. But these players going out and now having the ability to make this all year round or to get some extra reps in. And I think the coaching staff, the organizations, they love the fact that they see that the players bonding in that way, because it just wasn't there when I played. We played long seasons. We had long training camps. We had two-a-days. We were in pads all season. So it wasn't as easy on the body as some of these guys have. So there's a little bit easier recovery time that they have in between their seasons. But having said that, I think just the bonding aspect of what takes place when the players get together is going to be the most valuable part, because you build a friendship, you build communication, you build a whole different level of compatibility that you don't just get just from the practice and then when you're in the film sessions and then going home. So I say it's great to the guys that do that, even if they're not playing sports. I think getting to know one another even on that level just heightens and also accelerates the growth activity that you see with a lot of these players.
Folks, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. We're about 130 away from 6,500 subscribers. So if you're one of those guys, you got to hit that subscribe button. If not, Rory is going to get a perm. And that may
I was just ready to say, man. Hey, Mike, I was just ready to say, you know what? If you hit that like button, we can all chip in, because maybe there's a way for us to all just, help him get that perm, man. We want to make sure his hair is it's dyed, fried, and laid to the side. We're gonna make sure we take care of Rory. We got to get him spruced up a little bit right there. It looked a little dry too, so I'm gonna see if I can bring some of my personal care products that we have for men, man. I'm gonna get his hair nice and get a little sheen to it.
Yeah, we don't need him to look like Cat Williams from Scary Movie. I appreciate everybody hanging out. Rory, we're looking at you, man.